welcome to my channel. Um, I had some. First off, I want to give my creator all the honor, glory, and praise. And at this comment, I'm going to let you watch this video because I'm not a very good speaker, but I had somebody in the comments saying God's not feminine, He's a father. Yeah, I'll admit that I believe He desires to be called our Father. But you can't, if you're in these churches today, there's 60,000 denominations and they're all a branch off the Catholic Church. I traced them down the tree. So my granny was a holy roller, they call them. Well, little did I know that all the time I was being taught about King James Bible, that King James Bible was translated into, King James translated it, had it translated. When they got through translating it, he gave it to Sir Francis Bacon, a word specialist, and he went in there and altered a lot of the words in the King James Bible. And it took me 3 or 4 times hearing and reading that to finally see that, man, everything I was taught in these churches of these 60,000 different denominations, none of them get along. So um, I want to talk, what this is going to explain to you is that until you go back to the original Hebrew language, you're not going to know what the Word of God is. And there's plenty of historical documents of the Bible, the Dead Sea Scrolls, that you can go back and see the original language. I want the truth, folks. I really do. I want the truth. And I'm going to tell you what, it's an eye opener when you start breaking free from all that programming that we've been programmed with by the Catholic Church, by the Baptist Church, by the Pentecostal Church, the Nazarene, the Free, Free Bible Baptist. I mean, they're just names all over the place. That's ridiculous. They can't none of them agree on nothing. So I started seeing had been deceived. I started realizing that, and I thought, well, the only way I really know how to get undeceived is go try to find the original, the first documents, because I know God was powerful enough to give us the theme of His Word. And so, anyway, I started looking for answers, and started seeing that I will never know the truth unless I know the Hebrew language. That's why I'm so into that you can decode yourself with the Hebrew language. You can decode anything on this earth because it was the first language was Paleo-Hebrew. Then it went to kind of a Sumerian, Phoenician, and then they altered, then the improved Hebrew and all that. That man has changed it all this time. But if you can get back to the earliest letters of the Hebrew alphabet and their original meanings, then you'll start seeing that you've been deceived too. And I ain't poking fun at anybody being deceived, because I was one of the worst, man. I hung on that King James Bible was the only Bible in this world and stuff like that. But I did want to know about, when I started seeing that, about this YHVH and the YAH, the original Hebrew, that it contained a feminine aspect. And God made man and woman in His image. When you go to see this, the Hebrew writings and what the definitions was, you'll see that God is not just a masculine form. And matter of fact, Adam and Eve were God. YAH. When you break it down, the Hebrew, and you'll see, I'm gonna let you listen to this guy. He can explain it. He explains it very well. And I'm not doing this I'm doing it because people need to know the truth. They need to know the truth. And I don't know everything, that's for sure. But I just do know this, that, man, I started having a game. When I seen that I fell behind, I'd been deceived when I was 50 years old. I had to start catching up. All that 50 years of deprogramming, or 45, whatever it was, it was 45, 50. I'd walked with God all my life when I was a kid and all that kind of stuff, but God will let you be deceived so you don't look down on somebody else that's deceived, and I had a guy in the comments say something about, and I ain't, I leave all my comments up there if they have anything to do with my videos, because people have the right to speech, for free speech, no matter whether you believe like me or not. I'm for your free speech, and I'm for your free thinking, and so uh, and that's what God wants. We got to get out of all this church training and understand, understand that we've been lied to, we've been programmed. America just even the name America comes from the red plumed serpent. That's what America means. So you know the Islamists say that we're the big uh, we're the great serpent, you know, and they're right. They're right. When you go back and see what America's name means, it's America, Amurkia or something like that. That's how it's spelled. That's where we got our name from, the New World. So anyway, I'm gonna go on with this guy right here and let you listen to him so you can see, and you don't have to believe him either. You know, you have the right to believe whatever you want to. I'm all for you having that right. You know, and I just all right. I'm just gonna go on with it. Let's just let him kind of explain it to you.
I know it's late. It's pretty close to midnight where I am. I'm not sure what the time is where you all are, but this was one of those evenings when I get this feeling like I should put up a live stream no matter what time it is. And I'm there and I'm saying, no, I don't want to do this. I just want to go to sleep. And I turn over and I ignore it, and it just keeps eating on me and eating on me, saying, no, you really got to get up and do this. Why, I don't know. Maybe somebody needs to hear this because of some of the other things I've been talking about over the last how many months. So at any rate, I finally got up. The light's not the best. I didn't bother to set up any. I brought a few studio lights with me, but I didn't bother to put them up. I figured I looked at the board here, and it looks like you can see it pretty well without me having to light anything up more. I'm going to look a little yellowish red, I guess, a little orange, I suppose. Anyway, today is the 17th of June. I can't believe it, 2021. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome as you come in. I appreciate the fact that there are a few here with me this wee hours of the night, and I hope that your being here is going to be worthwhile with the things that I have. No, I can't really speak up. There are people asleep here, and I'm not going to make any more noise than I already am. Okay, so you'll just have to turn your fans off there. Sorry about that. All right. Well, one of my presentations in the last week or so, I showed the letter Aleph, and I inadvertently and I explained it in the comments section of the video where I did this. I inadvertently did something that people that deal with the letters of the Hebrew alphabet and how they can be rearranged in certain ways. I did that thinking about something else that I was getting to, and then I had to correct it. And I'm going to show you what that was here, and it's in the comments section of that video. And it has to do with evil. So, and the whole thing with the Garden of Eden and the serpent and what God was up to and those types of things. And those of you who don't, hello everyone, and those of you who don't want to really follow this, I can understand, but there's some things here that I think will prove to be very interesting to you. You know how I'm very up on this whole thing about the relationship between men and women, and so many people wonder why I concentrate on that so much. And the reason is because that's what we are, number one. I mean, it's obvious, and there are forces in the world that are trying to change that, which would be evil. And we need to latch onto that and to make sure that we embrace it. Use it righteously, but embrace it. God's, if you believe Genesis, that's another thing. But I mean, you can just look at it as a matter of nature, as a matter of what's manifestly shown to you, that there are men and women, there are male and female. And in Genesis, it says God made man in his image, male and female, and I want to show you something about that tonight. But I want to explain first the situation that I did on the letter Aleph. When I wrote it out the other night, I showed it with 3 vavs. In other words, a vav that goes, I should have a pointer here, hold on, so I don't block it out. Right here, you have a long vav here, and then a long vav there, a long vav there. That's when you mature, when you, it's not really an expansion, it's more of a maturation, but it's a growing of the yods. The way that the Aleph, and I explained this in that comment section for those of you who know what I'm talking about, the Aleph is actually spelled with a vav, and then a yod here and a yod here. And the number, when you add those up, the 2 yods, each one's 10, and the vav is 6. I told you that it came out to 26. Well, 26 is also the gematria for YHVH. In other words, the name that you know as Jehovah. Isn't that interesting? So in the Aleph, which symbolizes God as a single letter, it also equates to the numerical value of YHVH, or Jehovah, as you would know it. Now, when I said that it was made with the 3 vavs, again, I was thinking of this situation that we were kind of getting into. We were talking about the Dead Sea Scrolls and some other things, and the way the Hebrew can be altered. The letters can be broken down. Well, another part of that, and this is going to be very strange to most people. You'd have to be at another, I don't want to say level, but another point of education. Let me put it that way, to understand what I was doing there. The yods can mature, they can grow into vavs. Yods are 10, but they're further down the alphabet. Vav is actually earlier in the alphabet, the Hebrew alphabet, than the yod. So basically, what it means is it's a greater letter. Like Aleph is the greatest of all the letters, right? So as you from Aleph, which is the greatest of all letters, then you go on down from there. And there are different gradations. There are mother letters and things like that, but that's really too much information for you to get into that. The point is I was showing that when you use the three vavs, you get, because a vav is six, right? So three vavs is what? 666, right? No, I can't. I'm not going to explain that again. 666 is what it is, okay? And people who know Hebrew, especially the value of the letters, were going, whoa, 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 wait a minute. And I thought, oh, geez, I took it down too far. I said I went too far. So then I gave an explanation of this with the Aleph, with the way it should be written in normal parlance and normal use, with a vav and two yods. Why did I do that? I'm going to read it to you, okay? My volume's not too low. Sorry, that can't be adjusted, okay? That's your problem, not mine. I don't mean to lose my temper, but that's a game that people play on here. Okay, let's go to Isaiah 45:7, okay? 45:7. And I want to read this to you, and you'll understand why this is the case. And it's going to be disturbing again to a lot of people, okay? All right? It says this, Isaiah 45:7. For those of you who want to have a Bible and read it, it says this. Because people don't believe this when you tell them. They say, no, that can't be true. Well, here it is in Isaiah. If you use the Hebrew scriptures, if you do that. It says this. This is God talking, and he says, I form the light and create darkness. Oh, that's not a big deal, right? Because in Genesis 1, he divided the light from the dark, right? Well, now listen to this. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, I, Jehovah, do all these things. Let me read that to you again. I form the light and create the darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. Isaiah 45:7. Now, just for those of you who have other versions of the Bible, that's out of the King James. I know some of the others translate the word that was translated there, evil, in some other ways. And I'm going to give that to you. Let me tell you what they are. Evil is rah, okay? Rah. And it can mean evil. It can mean adversity, affliction, or sorrow. So it still fits. I, the Lord, create sorrow, affliction. We call it evil, okay? Yeah, live and evil are in reverse. I know. That is an interesting thing in English, isn't it? Darkness, on the other hand, is koshek. And koshek means darkness, uh, death, misery, sorrow, wickedness, or even ignorance. But the idea of darkness, okay? So what happens, of course, when you have God, 26, Yahweh, for instance, Jehovah, as they say. Jews don't like to even try to pronounce the word, but I'll do it here for your edification. And that's not the way you really pronounce it, but that's the way everybody likes to. 26, which goes along with the YHVH, the Jehovah. But when those yods, because God said he creates evil, when they mature to a certain point, the Aleph looks like that, and there are three vavs, which is the 666, which of course is the idea of the man of evil, etc. That's where that came from. That's the reason why I did it, and I didn't explain it at the time, so I thought I'd better go back and do that. But there's some other things here too that I think will kind of show you that in the Yod He Vav He, and I won't write that up, but it would be Yod. Well, I might as well here. I mean, if I'm going to do it this far, I might as well go ahead and do the whole thing, I suppose, because there is another part to this. I'm going to have to do it down here. Yod, whoops, Yod, He, Vav, He. If you notice, that's translated to Jehovah. That's the holy, unhonorable name. But anyway, you'll notice that there's a Yod and a He and a Vav and a He. So essentially, what happens is one of the extractions from the word is that this Yod matures to that Vav. So that's where the idea actually comes from. And I've given a lesson on this tetragrammaton, they call it, before, and I'm not going to redo it here, other than to say that there are a lot of meanings that you can extract out of that. One of which we're going to do right now, but we're not going to actually take it out of that. We're going to end up here. So let me show you what's happening. Let me get rid of this so it's not a distraction. All right. So go to Isaiah 45:7. You'll be able to see this thing about God creating darkness and evil. Okay. All right. That's important. And that's that whole subject matter of when I was talking about the scrolls and changing the letters, giving codes and things like that. That's in there. Okay. And we could go into a lot of other stuff, but I just wanted to clear that up tonight. Let's go to the subject of God, men, and women, because that's what I was so restless with tonight. And I just wanted to throw this explanation in there to get it out of the way. This has been a major theme of mine because, as I've said, it was the first thing that was attacked in the Hebrew Bible. It was the first thing that was attacked by the adversary, by Satan, if you will, was that union between Adam and Eve. So going after that union between the man and the woman was the first thing that was attacked. And he used deception to do it, to drive a wedge between them. And Adam realized what was going on and wouldn't allow that to happen. Okay? He was willing to take the fall rather than be separated from his wife. Okay, a lot going on there. A lot going on there. Adam, when it says that God created man, the word that's used there is Adam. And Adam is, you could break this down, and I showed you this once before. You could break it down to the Aleph, which represents God. And then this becomes a word here, Dam. If you listen to my Eisenman and Dead Sea Scrolls lessons, Dam, like in Damascus, Dam means blood. So, in other words, the word Adam, for those of you who want to see how we're related to God, and I could really expand on this, but we're just going to touch on this for tonight. Adam is God who is attached to us here with blood. We're mortal, we're in blood. So God attaches to us. In other words, it shows that we're actually in God's image. We're actually a part of God, even though we have blood and are mortal. We're attached to him. But there's some other messages going on in the word Adam here too. And it's interesting because considering all the things I was talking about with the Dead Sea Scrolls and their idea of God and all of that, this would seem to fly in the face of that. But if you understand, and I'm not going to get into the details tonight, the same blood as God, yeah, you could say that. The other thing that this also says is that God and the blood are united, right? So there's some indication that they're like, hi, Case Walls, haven't seen you for a while. Hello. Um, yeah. Oh, did they? The Catholic Church admitted to excluding the Book of Enoch. Yeah, they have a reason to, don't they? And I don't want to pick on the Catholics. I really beat up the communion thing this last couple of weeks. But at any rate, so Adam, the meaning of man, shows this union between God and us in our mortal state, or God even possibly being us. I know that sounds Gnostic. By the way, one of the first Gnostics, a lot of people, they look at Paul and they think, Paul was an apostle of Jesus Christ and all that and whatever. And I've talked about that for several weeks now using Eisenman's explanation of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But Paul was probably the first Gnostic. In other words, Hellenistic Gnosticism. He was what brought that into the original Christian community. That was Hellenistic Gnosticism. And it finally broke off a little bit later. And became the Gnostics, the groups in Egypt, where they found the Nag Hammadi codices in Nag Hammadi. But anyway, so that's one thing that Adam means. Another thing that it means, when you take the word and break it down, it means God goes through a door into the water world, into mortality. Whoa, God through a door. Mem means water, okay? To get rid of this dom here, don't look at that. Just look at the single letters themselves. Aleph, which is God, Dalet, which is door, Mem, which is water. So the concept is God threw a door into the water or mortality. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Now, the thing that I consider the most important, and this is the point of the lesson for tonight, okay, why I concentrate so much on the man-woman relationship and why you have to repair this in any possible way you can. This is one reason why I say that there's no way, even though James was, the Apostle James, the brother of Jesus, was considered to be celibate, that he never married his entire life. I don't believe that's true, because he would be violating this very principle that I'm going to show you now, and I don't believe he would have done that. First of all, because it was explained to do that, for a man to leave his mother and his father and to cleave unto his wife and become one flesh, right? That's in Genesis. I mean, it's just short of a commandment. But the other reason that I figure that he just had to be was because, as I've explained, he was operating as the opposition high priest, opposed to the Herodian Roman people that were appointed to those positions. They didn't have a right to it. They were appointed to it by the Romans and Herodians. So he was in opposition to them, and as I explained, he was wearing the crown or the diadem of the high priest, as well as the vestments. Well, as I've explained, the high priest can't go into the Holy of Holies unless he has a wife. And it was so important because in the image of God is male and female. So somewhere in there, even though it's not talked about, and people say he was a lifelong celibate, not virgin, they use the wrong word. He's not a virgin. That's only used for women. Yeah, good. That's exactly right, Kay. That's exactly right. So he had to have a wife in order for God not to kill him when he goes into the Holy of Holies to do his Yom Kippur atonement. Okay, so for those reasons, I said, hey, this guy had to have been married for both of these reasons. Yeah, I know, and not everybody's going to believe this and these things, and that's okay. But I was told tonight, as I'm trying to lay there going to sleep, get up and do this. You can tell I'm kind of in a bad mood, and then people tell me about the volume when I tell them, I can't be talking loud because I'm in a guest home. I'm with guests here. I'm a guest here, and I can't be waking people up. And then they say I got to turn up, and I can't. So I get irritated. So God woke me up. That irritated. Sort of like Jonah getting thrown into the belly of the whale. And I know that's allegorical, but. Anyway, why did you do this to me? No, I don't want him to repent in Nineveh. I want you to destroy him, that kind of thing. But anyway, for all those reasons, I got up. So let me get to the crux of the matter here. Genesis says God made man in his image. He made Adam, mankind, in his image, male and female. And it's in both Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. Now, I want to show you this. Follow me here. This is very important because I'm going to prove to you why this is important that we we cultivate these male-female relationships, get married, have a companion. And when I say married, I don't necessarily mean you have to have a state certificate of that. God doesn't give a crap about that. He gives what he's concerned about is your honor in sustaining your vows with the other party, however you put them together. Okay, so this male-female connection is absolutely necessary. I don't care. The women's liberation was, oh, I don't need a man. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That kind of stuff. Well, that's because they're violating the very point and principle of their creation. So let me show you what this is. This should really open your eyes. Man is Aleph, Yod, Shin. It's Ish. Okay? You'll notice that there's a Yod here. A Yod. Woman is Aleph, Shin, Hey. Aleph, Shin, Hey. Both words have an Aleph and a Shin. But the man has a Yod, and the woman has the female letter Hey in it. What's another name of God? Can anybody tell me? In Hebrew, what's another name for God? Anybody tell me? It's actually on the board. I put it there just because I knew this would be kind of blow everybody's mind. Well, it's in the word Elohim. Yahweh is another. What's another word for? Okay, I'll just tell you. You're bouncing around, okay, and Tom Sawyer, you're almost right. What's the beginning of Yahweh, Tom Sawyer? What's the first two letters? And it's used Yah. Emergency exit, exactly right. Well, look, what did I just show you? The man has Aleph, Yod, Shin. It has a Yod in it. The woman has Aleph, Shin, Hey. What does that spell in Hebrew? Yah. So the man and the woman together are in the image of God because they form the Yah. Do you see that? Did I make that clear to everybody? How important this relationship is, and we cannot allow the New World Order and our governments and our institutions, our schools, our social networks, and all that to destroy this relationship or degrade it. It's important. So when you have the man with the Yod and the woman with the Hey, you put those together and you have the image of God, Yah. Yep. Yeah, God's words are more than just mere words. I couldn't sleep because somebody out there needed to see this, I guess. I suppose that's what it is. I don't want to put too much on it, but it was bugging me, and I just had to get up and do it. And again, I'm sorry. I was really tired today. I think I showed you, I had some surgery done the other day on my arm, and so, I'm kind of grumpy. And here's the proof, okay? I still got the bandage on, all right? Yeah, they put a pretty good chunk of skin out. Okay, I've got one other thing I want to tell you about, and I mentioned it once before. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this right now because I want to go back to this evil thing and this thing from God about adversity and all of that I talked about in the beginning. So here, this is going to go away for now, all right? And we're going to go back to Isaiah 45:7 for just 1 minute, and then I'll let you go. I'll take some questions. It talks about, like I said, in Isaiah 45:7, God says, I form the light, create the darkness, I make peace, and I create evil. It causes all this trouble. Well, part of that is punishment, right? And I talked about this once before, and I just want to finish off here. The word for punishment, as I showed you once before, is this. It's a nosh. And again, we can cut the word in pieces, which I'm going to do here. The ayin means I, and this word, this root here, nosh, means fall. The idea of fall. I talked about this several weeks ago. So what punishment really means in God's terms, in the language of the Hebrew language, what it means is that you will see that you have fallen. You will see that you've erred. That's what it means. So God's not pushing you down. He's telling you, you've got to see that you've fallen down. Okay? So I wanted to bring that out tonight again because of all the crazy things on, and I think people need to have a little hope. One of the things I point out quite a bit is that the word for that they say, you have to have a fear of God. Well, what it really is, the word actually means more of awe. You have to have God wants you to have an awe of Him, not so much a fear of Him, but an awe of Him. That's really the concept in the Hebrew of the word. So I wanted to show you those things tonight. And again, remember, I'm going to do this one more time. Get rid of the Isaiah thing here because we want to end on the God, men and women. God, in just single letter, is the Aleph. All right, that's God. Man is Ish. Woman is Isha. This Yod and this Hey form Yah, which is another name of God. Very, very important. Short lesson, but I thought now I can go to sleep. All right. So I'm not kidding when I say that they're attacking us. They're trying to destroy us, our relationships. especially between men and women, but also the whole thing with children. Children aren't the main purpose of the man woman relationship, despite what you're told. The first reason that was given for the man woman relationship was companionship, right? Have a helpmeet. The man would have a helpmeet, companionship. That was the first reason. The natural fruit of that relationship, the children, are the blessings of the relationship, but they're not really the core purpose of it. The companionship, this image of God of the male and female, is what is really the important part, and that's been attacked for 6,000 years minimum. All right, and certainly in our days today, it's being attacked relentlessly. Okay, so tell me, was the sound really that bad? Can anybody tell me if the sound was really that bad? You know, I mean, it got through right. It was all 5 by 5. It was good. Okay. All right. I thought so. Sometimes people just have to complain. Probably try to interrupt. A lot of times I see that they're actually trolls that come on and actually they'll say, "They'll turn up the sound. I can't hear you," or some other thing that they'll complain about, and it's pretty common. So, are there any questions on this? Does this really open? Is there somebody on here that this has opened up your eyes more about maybe a relationship you have or you're working on, or anything like that? Okay, that's okay. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't like they were nasty. It wasn't. It really was. It wasn't your fault. It wasn't like they were nasty. Yeah, turn up the sound is what there's internet troll. Yeah, he even calls himself internet troll. Turn up the sound. Yeah, maybe that's who it was. I don't know. There were a couple of people I think on
Okay, that was kind of what I was talking about, that people need to, see that kind of information. I'm just going to let this go on and play out for the rest of this video, and you can watch it. He's got some more interesting things on here. He's really studied this stuff. You can tell after watching it. You ought to subscribe to his channel and go to his playlist of, his, he got several playlists, and he's, you can tell he's got a true heart. Once you watch him enough, and or I think he does anyway. Now I've been fooled by a few people, but this guy here, I've watched him long enough. I think he's really, he's a truther kind of a guy. A wants to know the truth, kind of like me. So I'm gonna continue this on, and when it's over, I will not comment no more on this here. But it's a good education for anybody that it may be hard to deprogram people. They may, if you watch it 3 or 4 times, it might start deprogramming you, because we have a subconscious that gets programmed, and we don't have control over that really. In a way we don't, and in a way we do. The truth is hard to find. It really is. The real truth is hard to find. But I'm saying God is both masculine and feminine. We're a reflection of, as above, so below. We're a reflection of what's going on in the heavens down here on earth. Just say there's a war going on in heavens. There'll be a war going on here on earth. Uh, how can you have a child without a mother and a father, a female and a masculine? You can't. So what I'm saying is that these are things we need to critically think about. We really need to critically think. And now I'll say it again. I feel like I should address my Creator as my Father, but if there's some that might feel like they need to address our Creator as a mother. I can't say on that for sure. I really can't say on that no more. Once I started seeing this stuff, I've been deprogrammed. I mean, I've been programmed for so long, it's hard to. But in my own way of thinking, I'll go to my grave, if that's as far as it goes, calling him my Father. But I do have a mother as part of God, and that's just what I want people to understand, is if you can go back, you have to step out of the box, out of the Vatican Catholic way of thinking. I mean, they have got some truth. Yeah, all these denominations have some truth, but they're controlled by the Vatican. And if you go back and run where your church come from, if you'll follow it all the way back, it's just a piece off the Vatican. They made it where you would argue with each other. That you'd have different opinions of the Bible. And God says, search out every matter. That's what I try to do. I'm no expert, but I'm just saying that I want to know every matter. And I don't think we can get back to God says, I'll declare the end from the beginning. I don't think we can get back to the beginning unless somebody knows that path back. I think Jesus comes set the standards. He paid the price, but somebody has to now. God's got to have somebody to represent that path. What's going on, and But anyway, I'm gonna go on with this.
There. Anyway, yeah. Becca was complaining. Let's see. Becca wasn't complaining. Roy, she's not a troll. Oh, okay. Well, I can't help the sound for two reasons. One, I have no volume control for the microphone on the phone. Number two is, like I said, I'm in somebody's house and I don't want to wake the whole place up. Okay, so that's all. Okay, so Becca, sorry, like I said, I'm a little irritated tonight because of my surgery and because of not the the man upstairs not let me sleep until I did this. It was just something else. Okay, sound wouldn't have been nice to turn up on. Yeah, well, if I could, I would, but I can't, and I can't adjust it. Let's see. Dan Gray says, "Yes, I'm a Roy." Okay, yeah, I personally know a couple. And I'm not doing this to propose to them, but I know that they're lonely, but they think that God has told them, and I'm not saying that He hasn't, because maybe He's got somebody for them, waiting on the wings and doesn't want them to run before they're ready. But I know not just women, but some men who are just not pursuing a relationship at all. Now, that's not wrong. It's not something to be condemned for, but it does inhibit your advancements, your learning, your becoming more of what you are. And so I think this probably has something to do with that. To show that it's not like they say that you're complete without a member of the opposite sex in your sphere and in your intimate sphere. You're not complete, and this defines that. And that's another reason why I was saying that these scriptures have been attacked so much. I'm not saying, of course I have. Does wife really mean women? It depends on the context. There are separate words for wife in the Hebrew, but generally, depending upon the context, you'll have women spelled like this. Woman. This is actually woman. Okay, and it will be spelled like that. Occasionally, there'll be another spelling for wife for some other. And again, that's done for specific reasons to emphasize things in the text. But out of the text, you can find this. But regardless, you are not in the image of God if you're a lone man. You only have the yod, right? All right. You're not in the image of God if you're a woman and all you've got is the hay because you're not with a man. So you're not there. So it's that union between the two that's important. And I think that explains it pretty well, actually. Um, and I could get into a lot more detail, but I think for right now, for what I've done for today, I think that's probably uh, really all I should do. I'm in love with Amazing Polly, but she doesn't know I exist. That's one of the disadvantages of cyberspace. Yeah, for sure. That's one of the definite disadvantages of cyberspace. Uh, okay. Any questions? I can turn up the sound, internet troll. But anything else here? God made man his image, was woman not made from Adam's flesh. That's an allegory. That's an allegory, and it comes to this, and I can show you where it comes from. Hold on a second. I can show you where that comes from and why that was used like that. So I'm going to erase this, okay? So I can show you where that came from. Let's see. What's the easiest way to do this? Well, I have to use the tetragrammaton. There's no other way to do it. Okay. You'll notice that uh, it says that God took a rib from Adam. This is going to get kind of heavy now here. Tetragrammaton. This is a little heavy, but just look at this. Okay, that's all I'm telling you. Uh, this has both male and female aspects to it. Okay. Um, only, only this, the male and female, the Adam. This is another way of saying the Adam, as I showed you. It has both the male and female characteristics. So there's something else going on in Genesis there than just taking something away from just the male side of that. Okay, because Adam was the two of them together in the first place. The Jews try to say that Adam was as an androgynous being, and that then the female part was taken out of him. And that's also a Gnostic idea and a pagan idea. Why they go along with that, I don't know, because the explanation is actually right in this word right here. So uh, I don't know if you get the gist of that. Yeah, and this isn't Talmudic, of course. This is actually in the language itself. So that actually works out. And I'll show you some more maybe at some other time. But the point is that the man has, if you look at our genetics, this is another way to explain it. A man has an X chromosome and a Y chromosome, right? A woman has two X chromosomes. Do we all know about genetics in men and women? So this is a man, and this is a woman. So a man has an X and a Y, kind of like this. You getting the gist of this? If the Y is the male part, The yod is the male part. The X would be like the hay, so the man has both the Y and the X chromosomes. The woman only has two X's. Who could come up with a man and or a woman? Only the man. He's got both. So you can take his genes and you can get two X's out of it, take two X's away, or you can take it and make another X and Y. So only a man has the ability to do both, and that's just genetics. Okay. That stuff about the fetus being female until the 49th day or whatever, that's not actually true. The sex is determined at the moment of conception, and the organs just develop slightly differently, of course, but the sex is determined at conception. Roy, is there marriage in the afterlife? Well, let's put it this way. If you're going to be in the image of God and he's got the male-female counterparts, what do you think? And what would make you happy? You know, I can't say that. It might be considered, the way she explained that to me on her part would probably not be a good thing. But anyway, my answer to that is yes. There's nothing else that guarantees. I mean, people say, well, you're going to have a relationship with God. Well, God's not that small. He's created us to want the opposite sex. That's what he wants us to be like. So there is a marriage just means that they're together. Okay. Both, as a companionship and as a sexual union. So, and it's not the idea of a state marriage certificate or even the idea, well, I'll give you an example. In Genesis, Abraham needed to get a wife for his son Isaac. And so he sends his servant out to find a wife for Isaac. And he does. He finds this girl by the name of Rebecca. You can go read the story. So Rebecca agrees. Okay, that's all there is going on in the story. She agrees. She agrees to the Abraham's servant that she will be Isaac's wife. That's all there was. So the servant brings Rebecca back to Abraham's camp. Abraham greets her, and Isaac comes out, and his mother, introduces them. And it says, and Isaac took Rebecca into his mother's tent, and he loved her. That was it. That was it. God is not as prudish as man wants to make him out to be, and men do it for control purposes. You'll find the same thing, I think, in when all of this is done. I would say a healthy man and a healthy woman, and if they don't, it's because, let me rephrase this, a healthy man and a healthy woman who have protected their psychology, their physical being and all of that, they yearn for the opposite sex, okay, for the reasons I've explained. If they don't, for some reason, there's usually been a psychological damage, a physical damage, or something like that, but it's normal for men and women to seek each other out. And in my understanding, and again, these are the Hebrew scriptures, but I look at this manifestly in the cosmos anyway, in the universe. Genesis 1 was the spirit world creation. Because if that weren't the case, then it's just eating itself by and large in the second chapter of Genesis. As a matter of fact, creation's almost totally reversed if you look at it. There are others who explain it as being when Ezra redacted the Old Testament, he had to appease both the Yahwist community and the Elohist community. So that's the reason why first and second Genesis are in there the way they are. And I don't know if you understand what I'm talking about, but there was a Yahwist philosophy and an Elohist philosophy. And you see it in Genesis, starting in Genesis 2. So that's one of the excuses for it, but I maintain that God did do, in fact, a spiritual creation, that all of what we are here is in a similitude of what we were there and where we're going when we leave here. Okay, that's how I view it. I'm not saying you have to, but if there isn't a union between male and female, men and women after this, then God pretty much lied to us. Okay, and I don't think he's up to that. Does that make sense? A lot of people don't want to hear it, but yeah. Oh, Yavol, Yavol means yes. Ron White found the key, the blood of, no. Okay, be careful of that. I'll just say that. Just be careful of that. Okay. That's all I can say. Just be careful of it. All right. I know a lot about that whole story, and there's some real problems with it. I don't want to denigrate anybody necessarily, but that flies in the face of manifest truth. Okay, I'll just put it that way. Nice thing to look at and study, but there's some real problems with his whole story. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, I know you're wide awake, and your understanding is no, there isn't marriage. Well, that's because you look at in the afterlife. That's because you look at the sayings of Jesus that are, as I've explained in the whole Dead Sea Scrolls presentation that I've given. There are some real problems with that, especially from the Pauline influence and some other things. But basically, it also goes to the fact that if Jesus said that, then he was in violation of the Torah, which was in Genesis, and I don't believe he would do that. Okay, I don't. As a matter of fact, he could, or that he would would have basically canceled himself out. The other thing is that people don't understand what's happening there, what they're actually talking about when it says they're, and Paul kind of says it in Galatians, I think, where he says, under Christ there is no male, no female, no slave, no rich, no bond, no free, all are the same. So, and really that's what Jesus was actually supposed to be saying when he explained that to the people that asked about that woman whose 7 husbands died, whose wife would she be? And his answer was, well, in heaven there's neither male nor female, and there's no marriage. And what he was saying is that the law applies. So basically, what it would be is the law would be treated to that woman and those men the same. It wouldn't be altered. It's not talking about their relationship as men and women. It's talking about their rights under that is what it's talking about. Okay, and that was lost in the translation because of some people that were trying to control. Sex is one of the things that if you control, you can control people. Look at 1984, the book by Orwell, how they divided the sexes up and wouldn't let them be together. Sex is one of the things that tyrants control. What do they do in the prison system? They divide the men and the women. What do they do in the gulags? They divide the men and the women. Okay, that's what tyrants do. Okay, so God isn't a tyrant, especially when he says he created us in his image. And I've shown you through all of this that his image is male and female, and that the man and the woman, when they get together, are a reflection of that image, because the man has ish, a yod, and the woman has an isha, hey. You put those together and it's yah. So yes, there is marriage in the afterlife. If there isn't, I don't care to go. It's not heaven. If there, yeah, I can't repeat what the woman told me, but basically, if there's no marriage in heaven, then it's not heaven as far as I'm concerned, because one of the things that are so important to us in this life about our interpersonal relationships, which God wants us to have, right? He wants us to have those. He made it that way. So you think God's going to take it away from you? If Jesus said anything, he said, I would that you have life and that more abundantly. Not that I'm going to, it's not like you're going to lose something when you leave here. No, I want you to have life more abundantly. So no, I mean, you can believe it if you want. What about same-sex marriage? Oh, no. No. I just showed you what that is. It's a man and a woman. Okay? Same-sex marriage is an abomination in Scripture, and you can see it manifestly in the real world. It doesn't produce anything. But I don't want to get there, because then we're going to have a problem with people on the censorship boards. Do we have to be married in heaven? Well, birds of the feather flock together. If God says he made man in his image, male and female, can you go where God is if you're not in his image? It's like I said before, I think because the high priest, when he went into the Holy of Holies, he had to be married to be in the image of God, and his wife would have to be right outside holding onto the rope that they put around his waist in case he had a problem. They could pull him out. And in a lot of cases, they'd have a second woman there in case the wife died for some reason, like she's, whatever. Yeah, if you're married to a person that you love, that whether it's your soulmate or not, I don't want to get into that whole thing, because that gets, well, I'll answer that question in a minute. If you love somebody, God's not going to force you apart from that person, right? What God has joined together, let no man put asunder, and God's not going to put asunder either. He wants your happiness. He's not going to divide you from the person that you love. If you're a woman, he's not going to take the man that you love away from you, and vice versa, because he's so selfish that he wants you floating around on a cloud, for all eternity, just singing hymns to him. If that were the case, what are we here for? All right. And then somebody asked me, well, wide awake and angry. It depends on if you believe in the resurrection or not. But as I just pointed out, the spirits were made male and female as well. So there is sex, according to that. But you can get really wound around the axle. Remember, we are in a place here that is a mirror image of heaven, of the spirit world. God says he's never given us a commandment that was not an eternal commandment. Well, if that's the case, then, okay, so there's something eternal about it. And like I said, if it isn't, there were no female angels. No, that's not true, Em. That's not true at all. You only hear about the male angels. The example of that is the way Abraham treated Sarah. The male is the protector, and so the protector basically shields the female, and so the female is many times not named. When Israel was numbered, for instance, when Israel was numbered, they only count the males. They don't count the females. Only the males are counted. It's assumed that they have a female counterpart. The woman is protected, as I just explained, like when Mary, the mother of Jesus, supposedly, and this is going along with the gospel story, which is a little bit problematic in my estimation, but when Joseph found out that she was pregnant and he didn't do it, what did he say he was going to do? He was going to put her away privately. He was going to keep it from everybody knowing that it happened. So there are female spirits. There are female angels. Absolutely. Angel just means messenger. It's not this winged creature, that has some kind of puritanical position in the spirit world. An angel is a malach. It just means a messenger. That's all it means. And Enoch, for instance, he had children. He had an entire city with him when he was taken, according to the writings, Book of Enoch, etc. There are passages that make you think that that women are dirty and that they're not in heaven and that they're. I mean, if you want to believe you're a dirty, disgusting creature because men look on you and think how beautiful you are, you really think that's the case? Do you really think that's the case? Yeah. Debbie Donovan. Hey, Debbie. Oh, wow. No, it's not that. It's not just that. Like I said, the first reason for men and women getting together is companionship. That's the first reason. That's the reason Eve was brought to Adam. Remember, it was uh, it's not good for man to be alone. We will make a helpmate for him. So the idea is companionship. Then the children are just a product of that. I mean, if you don't want to have sex with somebody, that's fine with me. I don't care. But I'm not interested in going to a place in the hereafter where that doesn't exist. If it doesn't exist, it ain't heaven. That's just the way it is. The thing is, the law is that you don't um, lust after somebody, and what that means is that you. It's not just the feeling of, well, that's a gorgeous woman. You look at a gorgeous mountain and you say, well, that's a gorgeous mountain. You look at a gorgeous woman. The point is that you don't sit there and cogitate on it to the point where you're starting to figure out some way to take her from her husband. And that's really what adultery is. When for instance, when it says thou shalt not commit adultery, that means there is no commandment, thou shalt not commit fornication. There isn't one. Okay, go find it. There are prohibitions against it in different scriptures. Even James says no fornication, but normally that had to do not just with sexual conduct, but outside the tribe. And there are some other things. But adultery is specifically taking a married woman. That's really what adultery, or a married woman being with somebody else. That's what it was really about. So uh, it's not sex on its own. That's not what it is. Let me see here. That's not to say, yeah, that's not to say that there aren't created angels that are specifically for one thing. Sort of like our AI today. I talked a lot about the AI being a creation of man, something that they created with their own hands, and they're worshiping it. Well, it's a sexless thing. So there are. I don't want to call them angels because that's really. I mean, they can perform in the function of an angel, a messenger. There are creatures that are not made in God's image. That could be any number of things, right? There are sexless amoebas, I guess. So I suppose there could be some type of celestial being that isn't in the image of God. But see, that was the complaint by the one that you know as Lucifer. That was the complaint of Lucifer to God that, hey, what do you see in this creation that you've made over here, these men and women? What about me? Why am I not like them? So that exists, but no, there are definitely. If there are no female angels, then you're out of luck. If you're a woman, and you're not going to go to heaven, I guess. All right. No, that's not what it's talking about at all. Not at all. Well, Becca Morrison, the female pains were increased after the fall. It says it right there, and apparently Eve had children before the fall because, according to the Genesis, it says when God, after this whole fall takes place, He says, "I will greatly multiply thy son and thy conception." Okay, so apparently before the fall, it wasn't quite as onerous or as difficult. Why that is, I don't know. That thou shalt not commit adultery has to do with again with coveting another man's wife. That's what it's really about. Coveting another man's wife and consummating that covetousness then becomes adultery. Okay, but adultery is not sex. Adultery is interfering with the contract between a man and a woman. Okay, that's what it is. Causing the woman to break the contract in one way or another by that connection. Roy, does that mean a tribe of Eves ate the fruit? No, but that's interesting that you should ask because some of the early writings indicate that Adam had three wives with him. Well, these are really old texts. Who really knows what they're talking about? There were actually three females in the garden with Adam and some of these other. Yeah, you're right, American Dystopia. One's name was Sarah, one was Phoebe, and one was Lilith. You've probably heard the name Lilith before. You probably didn't know Phoebe and Sarah. Sarah just means princess, so that was probably the same wife that would have in these writings. Sarah would have been the one that had Abel. Lilith would have been the one that had Cain, and Phoebe, I don't know. Okay, but those are other writings. Okay, yeah. So they did. There are writings that say he had three wives with him. Okay, yeah. Eve was the mother of all living. It's spelled like this. which is going to be interesting for you. That's Chava, that's Eve. And Adam said that he named his wife Eve because she is the mother of all living. Well, okay. Yeah, all right. So, and in this word, there's some other things here that are really important. Remember, I said that the Vav is the mature form of the Yod. Remember, I did with that with the word with the letter Aleph. Remember that? Well, if you turn this back the other way and you return back to that Yod, the word is Hayah, which means exist. Achayah is what God told Moses his name is. Achayah, I exist. And then here, this is going to really interest you here. And notice all the female and male symbols here. So God is male and female. Here's the. Oops, I messed up. I'm thinking of too many things at once. Right here. Eve, Chava, with a male added to her, becomes the Tetragrammaton, Jehovah. And this word here, as I showed you with the Aleph, that's I exist, I am that I am, I will be whom I will be. And with the Yod, Yod, that means he exists. He exists, which is a cognate of Jehovah. Everybody see that? Okay, since you asked that question, I'm going to show you one more thing on Jehovah, and then we'll go to something else. Let's go back to this. And this is going to freak some people out, and I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is, okay? We know that one of the names of God is Yah, and there it is right there, right? I showed you that earlier. The Vav is a connector. It's a joiner as well. This is another extraction, expansion of the word so that you can get a better meaning of it. This is going to freak some people out. Yah, a man and a woman connected to another woman. You see that? Man and woman, Yah, one of the names of God, Yah, a man and a woman, who then connects with another woman. This is another secret of the Garden of Eden and Adam. I know, that kind of stuff really blows people's minds. That's why I say the original language is absolutely important to understand. You can't get it from the English, and then we have this entire thousands of years, particularly the last 2,000, of disinformation, misinformation, power plays, institutional hierarchical conflicts, etc., etc. Okay. You guys are talking amongst these. Roy, were the eunuch verses in the Gospels interpolations from pagan, Gnostic, asexual, anti-married? When Jesus said those who make themselves eunuchs, I covered that in the Dead Sea Scrolls series that I did. When Jesus was saying there are those who make themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake, the real point of that was that they circumcised themselves. That was really the issue, because the Gentile world considered circumcision to be mutilating the male member and castration. So Jesus didn't mean that people actually make themselves eunuchs. What he meant was that they circumcised themselves to get into the kingdom. And that goes back to those arguments between Paul and James. Now, it also says, and I explained this in Qumran there were guys who didn't bring their wives into the camps or their children, because they were preparing for war. And I explained that when you marry a wife, you can't go to war for a year. That's in Leviticus. So certainly if they just got married, they wouldn't even come to the camps. But then if they did get married, they wouldn't bring their wives there. As a matter of fact, they've never found any women's bones that I know of in Qumran, because it was a war camp. That's really what it was about. But we know that they had children because Judas, one of the brothers of Jesus, two of his sons were executed by the Roman governor, by the emperor actually, during the war around 68 A.D. So they did marry, but I forgot what my point was. Like I said, it's getting late now. But at any rate, they did believe in marriage. They just knew that there would be periods of time where they would have to separate themselves from their wives so that they could do the things that they needed to do. So you're basically making yourself a eunuch. In other words, you're not having your conjugal relationships with your spouse. Then there were commandments in the Old Testament when God was going to appear to the entire nation, all of Israel. He said, don't come near your wives for 3 days. And that wasn't because God doesn't like them to have sex. It was because it's kind of like in class. And I explained this. You're in a classroom. It's not, God isn't afraid of sex. It's not going to hurt him to come to somebody. And you and your wife can have sex tonight and God could appear to you. It's not going to affect him. And that's baloney that somehow, holy thing can't be around something. It's actually created. That's all hogwash. I'll get to Nancy in a minute. but uh, they would separate themselves from their wives for a period of time so they could concentrate on what they were being taught. It's like being in a classroom and the teacher is rapping the ruler to say, "Hey, pay attention to me, don't pay attention to that girl across the aisle." It's that kind of thing. That's really what it was. And there was a thing about the blood and the semen too, but we're not going to get into that tonight. We're not going to do that. Now somebody asked a question, Nancy. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Actually, I haven't talked to Nancy since I mentioned it. If I did mention it to you last Saturday, I haven't talked to her since. I have talked to her husband. I have texted with her husband. Uh, I understand that I could tell you probably a little bit more, but for their privacy, I probably won't. But I don't get the indication that she's feeling better at all, and I don't see how she could. She's going to have some very aggressive treatment if it even works. She's already at stage 4. It's caused me a lot of grief, and I'm sure everyone that really appreciates her. And you don't know her. I mean, I know there are people that know her probably better than I do. As a matter of fact, I know that's the case. But just the little bit that I know of her, it's devastated me, and I know it has her very close friends, and of course her family. So no, I don't think she's better at all. And if she gets better, it's going to be a very slow process over a period of time, and then of course the prognosis, um, you know, the longer it goes on, the less likely it is that she'll get over it. So she needs the prayers. I'm not saying that she couldn't. She's a very strong woman. She's smart enough to know what needs to be done. If there's anything that can be done, she'll find it if she wants it. But I'm not sure what her frame of mind is now, and I'm not contacting her or her husband at this point. I asked for people who might have alternative, more natural treatments to send those to me, and I got a whole bunch of them. And I went through and I basically filtered out the ones that I figured, were either common knowledge or that really wouldn't work with my limited medical knowledge. But I had about a handful that were really good, and I sent 2 to them, but I don't want to inundate them because I was in that position where everybody wanted to tell me how to cure my wife's cancer, and that is exhausting. It causes anxiety, sleeplessness. It's just too much. Even it's just people trying to help, but it's just too much. So I don't want to overload them. I'm going to wait until they ask me. So that's how we're going to do it. I did send them 2 of them, and then her husband said, "Yeah, we just need to make her comfortable for now." Yeah, I've heard about K90 wormer K. Thank you. Yeah, I have heard about that. Um, and like I said, Nancy and her husband are very, very smart folk. So um, let's see what this is. AZ said, I'm a retired microbiologist. The Old Testament Levitical laws actually reads like a microbiology text, how to keep yourself clean. Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it was. Thank you for pointing that out. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Of course, blood can, you got to be careful with blood, especially when you're out in the heat. Because it can transmit disease, it can deteriorate and make you sick. If you accidentally ingest, it's like eating rotten meat. Maybe I'm giving the wrong impression there, but I think you know what I'm saying. So thank you for saying that. Exactly, it does. AZ Star, you're exactly right. That's really what it was about. It was about just trying to keep things clean so that you don't get sick. Yeah, very much so. Especially when you're traveling. You go to a land. Today, even though we can't do much travel right now, but if you're going from here to say Egypt, you've got to be careful that you don't expose yourself to diseases. And so keeping clean, washing your hands, doing all the things that they talk about in the Levitical laws is actually because they're traveling through a land they haven't been in according to the biblical record for 400 years, right? So thank you for pointing that out. You're very, very good. That was very good for you to bring up. I'm sure she is watching, Roy. I don't know. No, I can't imagine. No, Nancy being up right now. I would hope not. She needs to get sleep and she can get it. Yeah, Kay. She was diagnosed with stage 4 spinal cancer. That's why she slowed down so much over that last month. Slowed down on her presentations because she was in so much pain. And finally, when she couldn't deal with it anymore, because she just thought she wrenched her back, and then when she finally went into the hospital, they admitted her right away. She was that far along. Let's see. What's this? Just go raw vegan for a few months. Yeah, there. Like I say, there are all kinds of things you can do.
Okay, I'm gonna end this video. I said I wasn't gonna comment any, and I'm not for but a minute maybe. But I'm gonna ask everyone again to just, we've been programmed since we were born. We accepted the reality that we were born into, and a lot of people. I know a lot of people don't think that God talks to you in different ways, in reflections and mirror images, tags on a car, billboards. It don't matter. YouTube. He can talk to you through any way he chooses. And for those people that don't believe that, I feel for you. I don't know how you would know God. He's everywhere. He's omnipresent in everything. His cells are everywhere. And just like that with Adam and Eve, their name together in the Hebrew means Yah. That's God. So, you know, I don't know how to. You have a right to think what you want to. You have a right to. That's why we have free will. But anyway, thank y'all for coming to this video.